My son dumped me at a nursing home on my 75th birthday. You're dead weight, Dad. Time to face reality. Derek's words cut deeper than the commitment papers he shoved across our kitchen table. The same table where I'd helped him with homework for 12 years. I didn't argue, didn't beg, just reached for Margaret's photo on the mantel, the one Derek was about to pack away forever. Your mother would be ashamed, I said quietly. Derek laughed. Actually laughed. Mom's been dead 3 years, Dad. Time to stop living in the past. He tossed a crumpled $5 bill on the table. Buy yourself some candy at that place. The ambulance was already waiting outside. 7 days later, that $5 bill became $4.2 million. But winning the lottery was just the beginning. What Derek did next almost destroyed us both. Sunnybrook Nursing Home smelled like industrial bleach and abandoned dreams. Derek had researched the cheapest facility within 50 miles, $5,500 monthly, for what they generously called basic care. Your son was very specific about the budget, the intake coordinator explained, barely glancing up from her clipboard. Patricia Webb, according to her name tag, mid-40s, with the practiced indifference of someone who processed unwanted elderly daily. Shared room, cafeteria meals, basic medical monitoring, no therapy programs, no social activities, no dignity either, but Patricia didn't mention that. My roommate was Frank Castellano, 78, former municipal judge who'd been here 18 months. Unlike most residents, Frank still had all his faculties and plenty of opinions. Let me guess, he said as I unpacked my single suitcase. Son or daughter decided you were too expensive to keep around? Son. Figured. Daughters usually visit more, feel guilty longer. Sons treat it like a business decision. Frank adjusted his reading glasses. What's his excuse? Says I'm dead weight. Needs to liquidate assets for his future. Frank snorted. Liquidate assets. That's lawyer talk. Your boy in the legal profession? Harvard Law, class of 2001. Figures, I sentenced plenty of lawyers over the years. Smart enough to find loopholes, dumb enough to think they won't get caught. That first night, lying on a mattress, thin as Derek's patience, I pulled out the spiral notebook Margaret had given me for our anniversary. For your important thoughts, she'd said back when my thoughts mattered to someone. I started writing, not about Derek's betrayal. That pain was too fresh. Instead, I wrote about Margaret. March 15th, 2021, 3 years ago today. Margaret died while I was at Derek's office, signing papers to co-sign his second mortgage. Missed her last breath because my son needed money more than my wife needed her husband. The irony wasn't lost on me. Margaret had warned me about Derek's growing selfishness, his casual cruelty toward anyone who couldn't advance his ambitions. You're creating a monster, Harold, she'd said during one of our last conversations. Stop paying his way through life. I'd dismissed her concerns. Mothers worry too much, I thought. Derek was just ambitious, driven, focused on success. Now, 3 years after her death, I was finally seeing what Margaret had seen all along. Tuesday brought Derek's first call. His voice carried that artificial brightness people use when checking items off to-do lists. How's the adjustment going, Dad? Fine. Great. Listen, I drove by the house yesterday. The lawn looks terrible, and there's a broken gutter from last month's storm. I've got a crew coming Thursday to handle maintenance, get everything ready for market. For market. My house of 48 years, reduced to a commodity. I see. Dad, I know this is hard, but we have to be practical. The property taxes alone are $12,000 annually. Insurance, utilities, upkeep, it's bleeding money. Bleeding money. Like I was bleeding dignity in this sterile room. What about my workshop? Silence. Then, Dad, be realistic. All those tools, that old woodworking equipment, it's not worth moving. The estate sale company will handle everything. Everything. 40 years of collected tools, each one chosen carefully, maintained lovingly. The lathe where I'd turned table legs for Margaret's dining set. The saw that had built Derek's childhood treehouse. Of course, I said. You understand, right? I mean, it's not like you'll need that stuff anymore. Not like I'd need memories anymore. Not like craftsmanship mattered when you were warehoused away from society. Wednesday afternoon brought an unexpected visitor. Not Derek. He was too busy liquidating my life. Miranda came alone, looking uncomfortable in her designer coat among Sunnybrook's institutional furniture. Harold, I wanted to check on you personally. That's kind, Miranda. She sat in the plastic visitor chair, fidgeting with her Louis Vuitton handbag. Derek's been stressed. The house sale, work pressure, financial planning. He's not sleeping well. Financial planning. Interesting euphemism for spending money that wasn't his yet. I'm sure it's challenging. Harold, can I ask you something? Miranda leaned forward, lowering her voice. Are you okay with all this? The move, the house sale, everything? For a moment, I saw something in her eyes that looked like genuine concern, or maybe guilt. What choice do I have, Miranda? She was quiet for a long moment. Then, Derek doesn't know I'm here. He thinks I'm at yoga class. Why are you here? Because, she struggled with the words, because this feels wrong. You raised him, sacrificed for him, and now he's moving on with his life. That's what children do. Not like this. Not, she gestured around the sterile room, not abandoning you. Miranda's phone buzzed. Derek, probably wondering about her extended yoga session. I should go, she said, standing quickly. But Harold? If you need anything at all, please call me. Not Derek. Me. She pressed a business card into my hand. Her financial planning firm. After she left, I studied the card. Miranda Richardson Thornfield, CFP, Certified Financial Planner. Someone who understood money, investments, legal obligations. Someone who might understand what was about to happen to Derek's carefully planned future. I pulled out my notebook and wrote down our entire conversation. Word for word, timestamps included. Frank watched from his bed. Daughter-in-law feeling guilty? Something like that. Smart woman. Smarter than your son, probably. Definitely smarter. You thinking what I think you're thinking? I looked at Margaret's photo on my nightstand, then at the crumpled $5 bill I'd kept in my wallet. Margaret always said patience was a virtue, Frank. What else did she say? That someday Derek would learn the difference between the price of everything and the value of nothing. Sounds like a wise woman. The wisest. And she was right about Derek. Outside our window, storm clouds gathered over the hills. Rain was coming, but in room 237, Harold Thornfield was perfectly calm. The real storm was still 4 days away. Thursday evening, Derek called with news that made my blood run cold. Dad, we got a problem. Miranda's been asking questions about your finances. Apparently she found some old bank statements, wants to review our approach to your care situation. I kept my voice steady. What kind of questions? Nosy ones. She's talking about fiduciary responsibility, elder care standards, legal obligations, all that touchy-feely stuff. Derek's voice carried irritation mixed with something else. Worry. Miranda had kept her word about calling if I needed anything, but instead of calling me, she'd started investigating Derek. Maybe she's just concerned. Concerned? Derek laughed harshly. Dad, Miranda's a financial planner. When she gets concerned, it means she thinks someone's breaking laws. She's already pulled credit reports, bank records, even looked up Sunnybrook's state inspection ratings. My pulse quickened. What did she find? Nothing. Because there's nothing to find. But she's acting like I'm some kind of criminal for making practical decisions about your care. Practical decisions. Derek's favorite euphemism for selfishness. What exactly is she questioning? Everything. The nursing home choice, the house sale timeline, even... Derek paused, and I heard something I'd never heard in his voice before. Fear. Even asking about your mental competency evaluation. What mental competency evaluation? The one Sunnybrook required for admission. Standard procedure for all residents. But Miranda's treating it like some kind of smoking gun. This was news to me. Derek had never mentioned any evaluation. What did the evaluation show? Perfect cognitive function, of course. You're sharp as ever, Dad. That's not the point. The point is Miranda's making this way more complicated than it needs to be. Perfect cognitive function. Derek had committed a perfectly competent father to a nursing home for purely financial reasons. Miranda, the financial planner, would understand the legal implications of that. Maybe you should listen to her concerns. I am listening. Derek's voice rose, but she doesn't understand the big picture. The financial pressures, the market timing, the opportunity costs of keeping that house empty. Opportunity costs. Even disposing of his father had to be justified in business school terminology. What opportunity costs? Dad, I haven't told you this because I didn't want to worry you, but I'm in a bit of a financial bind. The divorce from Rachel 3 years ago was... expensive. Ongoing alimony, legal fees, credit damage, Derek's first marriage. I'd paid $30,000 for his divorce attorney, thinking it was a one-time family emergency. How expensive? Silence stretched long enough that I thought he'd hung up. Finally, $150,000 annually, for 7 more years. My breath caught. Derek was paying Rachel $150,000 per year, for 7 more years, over $1 million total. Derek, why didn't you tell me this? Because there was nothing you could do about it. Your pension barely covers your own expenses. Was barely covering them, I mean, before the nursing home situation. Before the nursing home situation, like my abandonment was a natural disaster that had simply occurred. How are you managing payments that large? Another long pause. Credit lines, business loans, and other arrangements. Other arrangements. Something in Derek's tone made my skin crawl. What other arrangements? Dad, I don't want to burden you with details. The point is, selling your house isn't just about your care costs. It's about keeping our family financially stable. Our family. Derek was using my house sale to pay alimony to his ex-wife. I see. No, you don't see. You can't see because you don't understand modern financial pressures. Rachel's attorney was like a shark. The settlement was brutal. And Miranda's parents co-signed our current mortgage. So if I default... Derek was unraveling. The confident Harvard lawyer was disappearing, replaced by a desperate man juggling debts I'd never imagined. How much debt are you carrying, Derek? That's not... Dad, I can't... Look, the house sale fixes everything. $890,000 clears the worst of it, gives us breathing room, sets up a sustainable budget for your care. $890,000. My life's work, reduced to Derek's debt relief fund. And if the house doesn't sell quickly? The silence was answer enough. Derek, are you gambling? What? No, God. No, Dad, I'm a lawyer, not some degenerate. Are you? I play poker sometimes. Business networking, stress relief, nothing serious. How much? Dad, this is insulting. I don't have a gambling problem. I have a cash flow problem. Temporary, manageable, easily solved by liquidating underperforming assets. Underperforming assets. I'd become an entry on Derek's balance sheet. Miranda knows about the gambling. There's nothing to know, and if she keeps digging around, asking questions, she's going to make everything worse. Some things are better left private. Private from your wife? Private from everyone! Derek's composure finally cracked. Dad, I need you to talk to her. Tell her you're happy with the arrangements, that you trust my judgment. Can you do that for me? Tell Miranda I was happy being abandoned, so Derek could pay gambling debts and alimony. Tell her I trusted the judgment of a man who just confessed to financial desperation I'd never suspected. Of course, Derek. Whatever you need. Thank you. God, thank you. You don't know how much pressure I'm under. After he hung up, I sat in the growing darkness of room 237. Frank was pretending to sleep, but I could tell he'd heard everything. Your boy's in deeper than you thought, he said quietly. Much deeper. Gambling debts? Among other things. Harold, you know what this means? I pulled out my notebook and began writing. Derek's admission of alimony payments, gambling activities, and financial desperation. The mental competency evaluation I'd never known about. Miranda's investigation into his decisions. It means, I said slowly, that Derek didn't abandon me for greed. He abandoned me for survival. Does that make it better or worse? I looked at Margaret's photo, then at the $5 bill Derek had thrown at me like charity. It makes it different, Frank. Much more complicated. You still planning to buy that lottery ticket tomorrow? More than ever, but not for the reasons I thought. Outside our window, lightning flickered through storm clouds. But this time, I wasn't calm. This time, I was angry. Not just at Derek's betrayal, but at the desperation that had driven him to it. Desperation he'd hidden, debts he'd accumulated, choices he'd made without ever asking for help. Margaret had been right. I'd created a monster. But not the monster I'd thought. I'd created a son too proud to admit failure and too desperate to avoid it. Friday morning, I couldn't stop thinking about Derek's confession. $150,000 annually in alimony. Gambling debts he'd called stress relief. A desperate man making desperate choices with his father's life. Frank watched me pace our small room. You're wearing a hole in that linoleum, Harold. Derek's drowning, Frank. Has been for years. And he decided to use you as a life preserver. I sat heavily in the plastic chair. Margaret tried to warn me. 3 years ago, she said Derek was becoming someone we wouldn't recognize. I thought she was being dramatic. What did she say exactly? I pulled out my notebook, flipped to entries from Margaret's final months. She said Derek had started treating family like business transactions. Everything had to have a return on investment. Smart woman. She begged me to stop enabling him, said I was teaching him that other people existed to solve his problems. I touched her photo on my nightstand. The day she died, I was at Derek's office co-signing his second mortgage. She died alone because our son needed money, more than she needed her husband. Frank was quiet for a long moment. That's a heavy burden to carry. I've carried it for 3 years. Every night, wondering if she'd still be alive if I'd been there, if I'd caught the signs earlier, called the ambulance sooner. Harold, you can't, but I can do something about Derek. I stood up, decision crystallizing. Margaret was right about enabling him. I've been his safety net so long, he never learned to swim. So what's the plan? I pulled out the crumpled $5 bill Derek had tossed at me. Margaret used to say the universe has a sense of irony. Let's test that theory. At 2 p.m., Derek arrived for his first visit since abandoning me. He looked haggard, desperate, like a man who hadn't slept in days. Dad, thank God you agreed to see me. Of course. I talked to Miranda last night. She's threatening to leave if I don't come clean about our financial situation. Derek slumped in the visitor chair. She found the credit card statements. Which statements? The poker games, Atlantic City, online sites, some private games with other lawyers. Derek's voice cracked. It's not as bad as it looks, but Miranda doesn't understand that poker is skill-based. I'm actually up over the long term. How much, Derek? The gambling? Maybe 40, 50,000 total over 2 years. Nothing I can't recover. Derek was lying. Badly. Whatever the real number was, it was much higher. And the other debts? Business loans, credit lines, the Rachel situation. Derek ran his hands through his hair. Dad, I need that house sale. If it doesn't close by month end, I'll lose everything. The practice, the house, Miranda, the kids. For the first time since this began, I felt sorry for Derek. Not enough to forgive him, but enough to understand him. Son, why didn't you come to me earlier, before it got this bad? Because I'm supposed to be successful. I'm supposed to have it all figured out. Derek's voice rose. I'm a Harvard lawyer with a corner office and a 6-figure income. I shouldn't need my 75-year-old father to bail me out again. Again. The word hung between us like an indictment. How many times have I bailed you out, Derek? He looked away. This is different. How many times? College, the first house, the startup, the divorce, the second house. Derek's voice got smaller with each item. Maybe half a dozen. Half a dozen times I'd taught Derek that failure had no consequences, that Daddy would always fix everything. And now you've run out of failures I can afford to fix. Dad, please. I know I've made mistakes, but I can turn this around. The house sale gives me a clean slate, and then what? You'll make different choices? Better decisions? Derek nodded eagerly. Exactly. This is rock bottom. I've learned my lesson. I stood up and walked to the window. Below, Derek's BMW sat in the visitor lot, a $90,000 car he'd leased while drowning in debt. Derek, do you remember what Margaret said to you the last time I bailed you out? Mom said a lot of things. She said, Mom, someday your father won't be there to catch you. What will you do then? Derek was quiet. Well, son, someday is today. I pulled out the $5 bill and held it up. You know what I'm going to do with this? Dad, please don't lecture me about money. $5 isn't going to... I'm going to buy a lottery ticket. Derek actually laughed. A lottery ticket? Dad, the odds are 24 million to 1, I know. But Margaret always said hope was worth more than odds. Mom never played the lottery. No. But she believed in consequences, and irony, and the idea that sometimes the universe gives you exactly what you need, when you need it most. Derek looked confused. What does that even mean? I folded the $5 bill carefully. It means, son, that in about 6 hours, we're going to find out if 45 years of enabling you was the biggest mistake of my life. I don't understand. You will? After Derek left, Frank watched me prepare for my walk to the gas station. You really think you're going to win? Frank, I think the universe has been setting up this moment for 3 years, ever since Margaret died, trying to warn me about Derek. And if you don't win, then I die knowing I finally stopped enabling my son's self-destruction. And if you do win, I looked at Margaret's photo one last time. Then Derek learns what Margaret tried to teach us both. That love without boundaries isn't love at all. I walked out of Sunnybrook into the evening air, that $5 bill warm in my pocket. Margaret's voice seemed to whisper on the wind, "It's time, Harold. It's finally time." Friday night, 11:47 p.m., I sat alone in Sunnybrook's common room, watching the Mega Millions drawing on the ancient television. Most residents were asleep, but Frank had wheeled down to keep me company. "You really picked random numbers?" he asked. I showed him the ticket. Margaret's birthday, and the day Derek was born. Our wedding anniversary, the day she died. I paused. And Derek's age when he stopped visiting her in the hospital. 42. 42. The numbers rolled out slowly. 07, 15, 23, 31, 42, and the megaball, 04. Frank stared at the screen, then at my ticket, then back at the screen. "Harold, I know. You just won $4.2 million. I know." We sat in stunned silence. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor after all. Saturday morning, I called the lottery office. The claims agent, Jennifer Martinez, sounded almost bored. "Congratulations, Mr. Thornfield. After taxes, you're looking at approximately $2.6 million. Standard 30-day verification period, then we can arrange. I need this kept completely confidential. No press, no publicity. Of course, many winners prefer privacy, and I need to claim it immediately, Monday if possible. Certainly, may I ask about the urgency?" I looked around Sunnybrook's sterile hallway. Let's just say my living situation is about to change dramatically. That weekend was the longest of my life. Derek called twice, both times sounding more desperate. "Dad, the house has 3 offers, but the highest one wants a 2-week closing. I need you to sign some papers." "Of course, Derek." "And Miranda, she's staying at her mother's this weekend. Says she needs space to think about our marriage." "I'm sorry to hear that. It's temporary. Once the financial pressure eases, everything will go back to normal." Normal. Derek still believed money could fix what he'd broken. Sunday evening brought an unexpected call. Miranda, not Derek. "Harold? I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Not at all. I wanted you to know I've been reviewing Derek's finances, all of them." Her voice was tight with controlled anger. "Harold, did you know he owes $400,000 in gambling debts? $400,000. 8 times what Derek had admitted to me. That's significant. There are people, Harold, dangerous people. Derek took loans from them when the banks cut him off." My blood ran cold. "What kind of people?" "The kind who don't accept bankruptcy as an excuse. The kind who—" Miranda's voice broke. "Harold, I'm scared. For the children, for myself. Derek's been lying about everything." "Miranda, are you safe?" "For now, but they've been calling the house, showing up at Derek's office. They want their money by month end, or they start taking other forms of payment." Other forms of payment. I felt sick. "How much does Derek owe in total? Between the gambling debts, alimony, business loans, and credit cards?" "Almost $800,000. $800,000. The exact amount Derek expected from selling my house." "Miranda, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest, okay? If Derek gets that house money, will it really solve his problems?" A long pause. "Harold, Derek has a gambling addiction. Giving him $800,000 is like giving a bottle to an alcoholic. It might solve today's crisis, but it won't fix the underlying problem." "What will?" "Consequences. Real ones, the kind you can't bail him out of." After she hung up, I sat in the darkness of room 237 thinking about Margaret's last words to me. Not her final breath in the hospital. I'd missed that. But her last coherent conversation, 3 days before she died. "Harold, promise me something. Anything. When Derek falls, and he will fall, don't catch him. Let him hit the ground. It's the only way he'll learn to stand up." I'd promised her, but I hadn't understood what she meant. Now I did. Monday morning, I took a taxi to the lottery office. By noon, I was officially worth $2.6 million. By 1 p.m., I'd hired Thomas Whitmore. By 3 p.m., Derek's world was about to collapse. But this time, when he fell, I wouldn't be there to catch him. Margaret was right about consequences, and irony, and the universe's perfect timing. Derek thought he was selling my house to save his life. Instead, he was about to lose everything he'd never deserved to have in the first place. The education begins now, son. Thomas Whitmore's office felt like entering a different universe. 43rd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that cost more than Derek's annual salary. But what impressed me most was Whitmore himself. Silver-haired, sharp-eyed, with the quiet confidence of someone who'd seen every family crisis imaginable. "Mr. Thornfield," he said, studying my lottery claim documents, "I've been practicing family law for 30 years. This is either the most elaborate revenge plot I've ever seen, or the universe's idea of poetic justice. Maybe both." He leaned back in his leather chair. "Before we proceed, I need to understand your goals. Are you looking to punish your son, protect your assets, or teach him a lesson?" "All three, but mostly the lesson part." Whitmore nodded to his team, 3 attorneys with thick folders already prepared. "My colleague Sarah Chen has reviewed the documentation you provided. The pattern of financial exploitation is extensive." Sarah, a sharp-eyed contracts attorney, opened her laptop. "Mr. Thornfield, your son has been using you as a personal bank for 45 years. College, houses, business ventures, legal fees, total documented withdrawals exceed $600,000, most of which was never repaid," added Robert Kim, the estate planning specialist. "But here's the interesting part," Whitmore continued. "Your son just committed you to a nursing facility while you're completely mentally competent. That could constitute elder abuse under state law." "Could. Would, if we wanted to pursue criminal charges. But I suspect you have something more educational in mind." I pulled out my notebook. "Derek owes dangerous people $400,000. His wife is threatening divorce. He's counting on my house sale to save his life. And you want to make sure that doesn't happen. I want to make sure Derek learns what Margaret tried to teach him. That actions have consequences." For the next 2 hours, we built a strategy that was both legal and devastating. First, a new will. Derek would inherit exactly $5. The rest would establish the Margaret Thornfield Foundation for Elder Abuse Prevention. Second, immediate purchase of Derek's office building. Cash offer, no contingencies. Third, and most importantly, complete documentation of Derek's gambling addiction and dangerous debts. The beauty of this approach, Whitmore explained, is that it forces Derek to confront his problems without your money as a safety net. "What about the people he owes?" Sarah looked up from her notes. "That's where it gets interesting. If Derek defaults on his gambling debts, his creditors will likely pursue bankruptcy proceedings that actually protects him from physical harm while forcing financial restructuring. Meaning Derek will lose everything, his practice, his house, his lifestyle, but he'll live through it and hopefully learn from it." Robert leaned forward. "Mr. Thornfield, there's one complication. Your son could challenge the will, claim undue influence, or mental incompetence. Even with my cognitive evaluation, especially with it, the timing is suspicious. Lottery win immediately followed by disinheritance. A good lawyer could argue emotional distress or temporary incapacity." I smiled grimly. "Then we need to make sure Derek isn't in a position to hire good lawyers." "What do you mean?" "I mean we're going to buy his building, evict his practice, and force him into bankruptcy before he realizes what's happening." Whitmore's eyebrows rose. "That's aggressive. Derek's creditors want their money by month end. If he can't deliver, they'll do far worse than eviction. You're protecting him by destroying him. I'm saving his life by teaching him consequences." Over the next hour, we refined the timeline. Purchase the building immediately. Serve Derek with eviction papers Wednesday. New will filed Thursday. By Friday, Derek would face a choice: bankruptcy protection or dangerous creditors. "There's one more thing," I said as we finished. "I want Derek to know this is coming from me. Not anonymous investors, not corporate entities, from his father. That's unusual. Most people prefer plausible deniability. Derek needs to understand that his actions have personal consequences, that the father he abandoned is the same father who could have saved him." Sarah closed her laptop. "Mr. Thornfield, this plan will likely destroy your relationship with your son permanently. The relationship was destroyed when he abandoned me. This is about preventing him from destroying himself. And if he doesn't learn, if he just becomes more bitter and self-destructive. I looked out the window at the city below. Somewhere down there, Derek was probably in his office, planning how to spend money from selling my house. Money that would enable his addiction instead of curing it. Then at least I'll know I stopped enabling his destruction. As I prepared to leave, Whitmore shook my hand. Mr. Thornfield, I've seen a lot of family disputes. This is either going to save your son's life or end your relationship forever. Those might be the same thing. What do you mean? Margaret used to say that sometimes the greatest act of love is letting someone fall, even if they hate you for it. And you're prepared for that hatred? I thought about Derek's children, the grandchildren who barely knew me, about Miranda, fighting to save her marriage to an addict, about Margaret, who died trying to warn me about this moment. I'm prepared for Derek to hate me if it means he finally learns to save himself. Whitmore nodded slowly. Then let's begin. Tuesday morning, Derek called me practically vibrating with manic energy. Dad, incredible news. The house sold. $890,000, cash offer, closing Friday. Can you believe it? I could hear Miranda in the background, her voice tight with stress. They were arguing about something. That's wonderful, Derek. Even better, I just got word that the office building owner accepted my offer. $3.2 million, but with the house money and some creative financing, I can make it work. Creative financing. Derek was borrowing against money he didn't have yet to buy a building I now owned. That sounds ambitious. Miranda's freaking out about the debt ratios, but she doesn't understand leverage. This is how real wealth gets built, Dad. Property ownership, cash flow generation, asset appreciation. In the background, Miranda's voice rose sharply. Derek, we can't afford... Hold on, Dad. I heard Derek cover the phone. His muffled voice carried anyway. Miranda, I told you, stop second-guessing every decision. We've been over this. When he came back, his tone was forced cheerful. Sorry about that. Wedding planning stress, you know how it is. Wedding planning? They'd been married 15 years. Is everything all right between you two? Everything's perfect. Miranda's just... She's been emotional lately. Women get like that when big changes are happening. Derek was lying. About the building, about Miranda, probably about everything. Derek, can I ask you something? Sure. Are you gambling again? Dead silence. Then, Dad, where is this coming from? Miranda mentioned. Miranda doesn't know what she's talking about. I play poker sometimes. Business networking. Stress relief. It's completely under control. How much are you down? I'm not down. I'm actually up over the long term. Poker is skill-based, Dad. It's not like slots or roulette. Derek's voice had that defensive edge addicts get when questioned. The same tone he'd used as a teenager when caught lying about grades. So you're not in debt to anyone dangerous? Another pause. Longer this time. Dad, who have you been talking to? I'm just concerned. Look, I may have borrowed some money from private sources. Non-traditional lending. But it's all manageable once the real estate transactions close. Non-traditional lending. Loan sharks. How much, Derek? It's complicated. Different creditors, different terms. But the house sale covers everything with room to spare. Everything? Dad, I really can't discuss specifics over the phone. Let's just say Friday solves all our problems. Our problems. Derek had made his gambling addiction my responsibility. That afternoon, Derek showed up at Sunnybrook unannounced. He looked terrible, hollow-eyed, jittery, like he hadn't slept in days. His expensive suit hung loose on his frame. Dad, we need to talk. About what? Derek glanced around the common room, then wheeled me to a corner where we couldn't be overheard. Miranda filed for separation yesterday. I'm sorry to hear that. She took the kids to her mother's. Says she won't come back until I get help for my problems. Derek's hands shook as he spoke. She doesn't understand the pressure I'm under. What kind of pressure? The kind you can't just quit, Dad. The kind that follows you home, calls your office, shows up at your kid's school. My blood went cold. Derek, are the children safe? For now. But these people, they're not patient. They want their money Friday, or they start collecting in other ways. How much do you really owe them? Derek looked around again, then leaned closer. $400,000. Plus interest. 20% monthly. 20% monthly. Derek was paying loan sharks nearly $100,000 monthly in interest alone. Son, how did it get this bad? It started small. A few thousand to cover the Rachel payments when cash flow was tight. But then I had a bad run, tried to chase my losses. Derek's voice cracked. Dad, I'm not a degenerate gambler. I'm a calculated risk-taker who hit a statistical anomaly. Statistical anomaly. Derek was still lying to himself. What happens if you can't pay Friday? I can pay. The house sale clears everything, gives me a fresh start. I've already learned my lesson. Have you? Absolutely. This was rock bottom. Never again. Derek had said those exact words after I'd bailed him out of his startup debts, and his divorce costs, and his previous temporary financial crises. Derek, what if the house sale falls through? It won't. Cash buyer already approved, closing Friday. Nothing can go wrong. Nothing can go wrong. Famous last words. That evening, Miranda called me directly. Harold, I'm sorry to bother you, but I need you to know what's happening. I'm listening. 2 men came to our house yesterday. They knew the children's names, their school schedule, even what after-school activities they attend. What did they want? They wanted Derek to understand how serious they are about Friday's deadline. They were polite but clear about what happens if he doesn't pay. Are you safe? My mother's house, yes. But Harold, Derek doesn't seem to understand that $800,000 won't fix this. He'll just get deeper in debt. What do you mean? I've been married to him for 15 years. I know how his mind works. He thinks the house money is seed capital for bigger bets, not debt relief. He's already talking about investments and opportunities and getting back what I lost. Miranda was right. Derek hadn't learned anything. He was still thinking like an addict. Miranda, what would it take to save your marriage? Derek would have to admit he has a problem, enter treatment, and submit to financial supervision. But he won't do any of that as long as he thinks money can solve everything. After she hung up, I sat in room 237, watching Derek's BMW circle the parking lot. He'd been sitting out there for 20 minutes, probably working up courage to ask me for something. Finally, he came back inside. Dad, I need a favor. A small favor. What kind of favor? If anyone calls here asking about me, about my finances, about Friday's closing, can you just tell them you don't know anything? Derek was asking me to lie to his creditors, to protect him one more time. Of course, son. Whatever you need. Derek sagged with relief. Thank you. God, thank you. After Friday, everything goes back to normal. After Derek left, Frank rolled over to my bed. Your boy still doesn't get it, does he? No, he still thinks money fixes everything. You gonna tell him about the lottery? I looked at the building purchase documents Whitmore had sent over. Signed, sealed, and delivered. Derek's office building now belonged to me. Tomorrow, Frank. Tomorrow, Derek learns that some problems can't be solved with other people's money. Think he'll finally understand? I think Derek's about to get the education Margaret always wanted him to have. Outside, storm clouds gathered over the city. But this time, I wasn't the one in danger of drowning. This time, Derek would have to learn to swim on his own. Wednesday morning, Derek arrived at Sunnybrook in a state of barely controlled panic. Dad, we have a problem. A big problem. What's wrong? Someone bought the building. The building I was supposed to buy. Cash offer. Closed yesterday. No warning. Derek paced our small room like a caged animal. My realtor says it was some private investor, but nobody knows who. Frank watched from his bed, pretending to read while taking in every word. That's unfortunate, I said carefully. Unfortunate? Dad, I need that building. The rental income was going to cover my monthly payments. Without it, Derek stopped pacing, ran his hands through his hair. Without it, the house money only buys me 6 months. 6 months before Derek would be right back where he started. Maybe you can find another investment property. There's no time. These people want their money Friday, and they're not interested in investment timelines. Derek's voice cracked. Dad, they know where the kids go to school. My blood ran cold, but I kept my expression neutral. The children are safe with Miranda's mother? For now, but if I can't pay... Derek slumped into the plastic visitor chair. I need options. Alternative solutions. Alternative solutions. Derek was still thinking like an addict, looking for another angle instead of facing reality. Such as... Well, the house sale is $890,000. After paying off the most dangerous debts, I'd have maybe $200,000 left. Derek's eyes took on that fevered quality I'd seen before. $200,000 is enough for a serious poker game. High stakes, serious players. If I could double it, triple it. Derek, stop. No, hear me out. I know it sounds risky, but I'm a skilled player. The only reason I'm in this mess is bad luck, statistical variance. But with proper bankroll management... Derek! My voice cut through his manic planning. Listen to yourself. What do you mean? You're talking about gambling with money meant to save your life. Derek's face flushed. It's not gambling when you have skill advantage. It's calculated risk management. Calculated risk management. Derek was so deep in addiction he couldn't even recognize his own delusions. Son, sit down. We need to talk. Something in my tone made Derek stop pacing. He sat, but his leg bounced with nervous energy. Derek, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to listen without interrupting. Okay. 3 days ago, I won the lottery. Derek blinked. What? The $5 bill you gave me for candy? I bought a Mega Millions ticket. I won $4.2 million. The color drained from Derek's face. He opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. You won the lottery? $2.6 million after taxes. Derek stared at me for a full minute. Then his expression changed. The panic disappeared, replaced by relief, then calculation, then something that looked like greed. Dad, that's incredible. This changes everything. Derek stood up, energy returning. We can pay off all my debts, keep the house, maybe even buy a second property. No. What? No, Derek. We're not paying off your debts. Derek looked like I'd slapped him. But you just said $4 million is mine, not ours, mine. And Dad, I don't understand. I'm your son, your only child. Family helps family. Family helps family, I repeated slowly. Interesting phrase coming from the man who abandoned me in a nursing home to steal my house. Derek's face went red. I didn't steal anything. I was being practical about, you were liquidating assets to fund your gambling addiction. It's not an addiction. It's a temporary cash flow problem that got out of hand. I pulled out my spiral notebook. Derek, over the past week, I've documented every conversation we've had, every lie you've told me, every manipulation you've attempted. Lies? Dad, what are you talking about? You told me you owed $50,000 in gambling debts. Miranda says it's $400,000. Derek's mouth opened and closed. Miranda doesn't understand the complexity. You told me the nursing home was about my care. It was about freeing up money for your creditors. That's not... it was both dash... You told me the house sale was about practical asset management. It was about saving your life from loan sharks. Derek stood up abruptly. Dad, you don't understand the pressure I'm under. I understand perfectly. You're a gambling addict who's been using me as a personal bank for 45 years. That's not fair. You gave me that money willingly, because I thought I was helping my son build a life. I didn't know I was enabling an addiction. Derek began pacing again. Okay, fine. Maybe I have a problem. But we can deal with that later. Right now, I need that lottery money to stay alive. No. Dad, please. These people will kill me. No, they won't. They'll force you into bankruptcy, which will actually protect you from physical harm while eliminating your debts. Derek stared at me. You want me to go bankrupt? I want you to face consequences for your choices. By letting me lose everything? By stopping my enabling of your self-destruction? Derek's voice rose to near shouting. I'm your son. You're supposed to protect me. I did protect you for 45 years. And look what it created. It created a successful lawyer with a Harvard degree. It created an addict who abandons his father to fund his gambling. Derek fell silent. Outside our window, I could see Thomas Whitmore's building in the distance. Soon Derek would learn that I owned his office space too. Dad, Derek said quietly, if you don't help me, I'll lose everything. My practice, my house, my family. Yes. And you're okay with that? I'm okay with you learning what Margaret tried to teach us both. That actions have consequences. Derek's eyes filled with tears. Mom would want you to help me. No, Derek. Mom begged me to stop enabling you. Her last words to me were about letting you fall so you could learn to stand up. That's not... She didn't mean... She meant exactly this. The moment when love requires saying no instead of yes. Derek slumped back into his chair. So what happens now? Now you make a choice. Bankruptcy protection and addiction treatment, or keep running from consequences until they catch you. And the lottery money goes to charity, the Margaret Thornfield Foundation for Elder Abuse Prevention. All of it? Except for $5, your inheritance, the same amount you gave me for candy. Derek was quiet for a long moment. Then, Dad, I hate you right now. I know. You're destroying my life. No, Derek. I'm stopping my participation in your self-destruction. What if I can't? What if I'm not strong enough to get through this alone? For the first time since this conversation started, Derek sounded like the scared little boy he used to be. Then you'll learn to be strong, the way Margaret always believed you could be. Derek stood up slowly. I need to think about this. You have until Friday. After that, your creditors make the choice for you. As Derek reached the door, he turned back. Dad, do you still love me? The question broke my heart. Derek, I love you enough to let you fall, even if you hate me for it. After he left, Frank rolled his wheelchair closer to my bed. Think he'll choose bankruptcy protection? I think Derek's about to discover who he really is when he can't run to Daddy for money. And if he chooses badly? I looked at Margaret's photo on my nightstand. Then at least I'll know I finally stopped enabling his destruction. Outside, Derek sat in his BMW for 20 minutes before driving away. Tomorrow, he'd learn about the building purchase. But tonight, for the first time in 45 years, Derek Thornfield was completely on his own. Thursday morning brought Derek's discovery of the building purchase in the most brutal way possible. He called me at 7:30 a.m., his voice barely controlled hysteria. Dad, they evicted me. Security guards, boxes on the sidewalk, locks changed. My entire practice just gone. What happened? The new building owner, turns out it's you. You bought my building. I said nothing. Dad? Dad? Did you hear me? You destroyed my practice. Derek, calm down. Calm down? I just lost my law firm, my office, my files, everything. My clients are calling asking where their attorney went. I'm standing on the sidewalk next to 17 boxes of legal documents like some kind of... Derek's voice cracked. Like some kind of homeless person. Through the phone, I could hear traffic, car horns, the chaos of downtown morning rush hour. Where are you now? Loading my car. A BMW filled with banker's boxes. Do you know how humiliating this is? Other lawyers walking by, staring, probably laughing. Derek, this doesn't have to be permanent. You can rent space. With what money? Derek screamed. The house closing got delayed. Something about title issues. My realtor says maybe next week, maybe longer. The house closing Derek was counting on to save his life had hit a snag. The universe's timing was impeccable. Son, take a breath. Don't son me. You did this. You knew about my problems, and you sabotaged me anyway. Derek was right. I had sabotaged him. Deliberately, systematically, completely. Derek, I want you to listen. No, you listen. I called Miranda this morning, told her about your lottery win, begged her to come home. You know what she said? What? She said, good. Maybe now Derek will hit rock bottom and get help. My own wife is celebrating my destruction. Miranda was smarter than I'd given her credit for. She understood what Derek couldn't see yet. Maybe she's right. She's not right. Nobody's right. I'm a good person who hit a bad streak. Derek was shouting now, probably drawing stares from passersby. A successful lawyer having a public breakdown. Derek, where are you going to go? I don't know. I can't afford hotel rooms much longer. The house has a for sale sign, so I can't go there. Miranda won't take my calls. And you... Derek's voice turned bitter. You're sitting on millions while your son becomes homeless. You're not homeless. You have options. What options? Bankruptcy? Admitting I'm an addict? Losing everything I've worked for? Yes. The single word hung between us like a judgment. You really want me to lose everything? I want you to stop running from consequences. Derek was quiet for a moment. Then, Dad, I need to tell you something. I'm listening. Those people I owe money to, they're not just loan sharks. They're connected, organized, and they're not going to accept bankruptcy as payment. My blood went cold. What does that mean? It means they want their money, or they want equivalent value. Property, assets, or... Derek's voice dropped to a whisper. or they collect from family members. Derek, are you threatening me? I'm not threatening anyone. I'm trying to explain that some debts can't be discharged in court. Then you should have thought about that before borrowing from criminals. I was desperate. I had no choice. You had choices, Derek. You chose gambling over family. You chose lies over honesty. You chose my house over my dignity. And now you're choosing revenge over love. The accusation hit harder than I'd expected. Derek, this isn't revenge. It's exactly revenge. You're punishing me for putting you in that nursing home. No, Derek. I'm trying to save your life by ending my participation in your suicide. Derek was crying now. I could hear it in his voice, broken and desperate. Dad, please. I'll do anything. Treatment, therapy, whatever you want. Just don't let me die for this. For the first time since this began, Derek sounded genuinely terrified instead of just angry. Derek, are you in immediate physical danger? I don't know. They're supposed to call today about Friday's deadline. Friday. Tomorrow. Son, listen to me carefully. You need to file for bankruptcy protection immediately. Today. But that won't stop these people. It will start the legal process. And Derek, call the FBI. The FBI? These aren't legitimate creditors. They're criminals. Let law enforcement handle them. I can't. If I cooperate with federal agents, I'm dead. If you don't cooperate, you're dead anyway. Derek sobbed. Actual, broken sobbing. Dad, I'm so scared. I know. Will you visit me? If I go to bankruptcy court? If I check into treatment? If I lose everything? Will you still be my father? The question broke my heart completely. Derek, I'll always be your father. That's why I had to stop being your enabler. I think I'm ready to get help. Then let's start making calls. For the first time in 45 years, Derek was asking for help instead of demanding money. Margaret would have been proud. 6 months later, Derek sat across from me in the visitor's lounge at Riverside Recovery Center. He looked different, thinner, grayer, but somehow more solid, more real. How are you feeling? I asked. Honest answer? Terrified, grateful, ashamed, all at the same time. Derek managed a weak smile. Group therapy teaches you to acknowledge multiple emotions. The FBI investigation? Wrapped up last month. Turns out my creditors were part of a larger racketeering operation. 6 arrests, including the guys who threatened my family. Derek shook his head. I was borrowing money from actual mobsters, Dad. Actual criminals. Are you safe now? Safer than I was 6 months ago. The bankruptcy discharged most of my legitimate debts. The criminal ones, well, hard to collect from federal prison. Derek looked out the window at the recovery center's garden. 3 months of inpatient treatment had given him something I hadn't seen in years. Clarity. Dad, I need to say something, and I need you to let me finish. I'm listening. I was wrong. About everything. The nursing home, the house, treating you like an ATM for 45 years. Derek's voice was steady but quiet. Mom tried to warn you about me, didn't she? She was worried about both of us. No, she was worried about what I was becoming, and what you were enabling me to become. Derek met my eyes. I killed her, didn't I? Kept you away when she needed you most. The guilt I'd carried for 3 years threatened to overwhelm me. Derek, let me say this, please. He took a deep breath. Mom died alone because I couldn't stop being selfish long enough to let her husband stay with her. That's on me, not you. We both made choices that day. No, Dad, you made the choice you'd been making for 45 years, putting my needs ahead of everything else. I made the choice to let you. Derek pulled out a worn piece of paper. This is my amends letter. Step 9 of the program. I wanted to read it to you. Derek, you don't have to. Dad, I owe you $678,000. Not in money. I know that's gone. In respect? In gratitude. In acknowledgement of what you sacrificed for me. He read for 10 minutes. Every debt, every sacrifice, every time I'd chosen his future over my present. When he finished, we both sat in silence. What happens now? I asked. Now I rebuild. From nothing. The way I should have learned to do 40 years ago. And Miranda? The children? Family therapy twice a week. Miranda's cautious, but hopeful. The kids are confused but adapting. Derek folded the letter carefully. We're living in a 2-bedroom apartment in Miranda's mother's neighborhood. It's humbling. Humbling can be good. It's necessary. Derek stood to leave. Visiting hours were ending. Dad, about the lottery money, it's doing good work. The foundation has helped over 200 families. I'm glad. Mom would approve. As Derek walked away, I thought about Margaret's last coherent words to me. Sometimes the greatest act of love is letting someone fall. She'd been right. Derek had fallen harder and further than either of us imagined. But for the first time in 45 years, he was standing on his own. That evening, Frank and I sat in our new shared apartment. I'd moved out of Sunnybrook once the lottery money gave me options. Think he'll make it? Frank asked. I think he's finally learning the difference between failing and falling. What's the difference? I looked at Margaret's photo on my new mantle. Failing is temporary. Falling teaches you how to stand up. And you? Any regrets about the tough love approach? I thought about Derek's breakdown, his terror, the months of uncertainty about whether he'd survive his own consequences. Only one regret, Frank. What's that? That it took me 75 years to learn that loving someone means trusting them to handle their own consequences. Even when those consequences might destroy them, especially then, because the alternative is destroying them slowly with kindness. Outside our window, spring was arriving. New growth, fresh starts, second chances earned through hard work instead of inherited through enabling. Derek was learning to stand on his own. Miranda was learning to trust again. Their children were learning that actions have consequences. And I was learning that sometimes the most loving thing a father can do is step back and let his son discover his own strength. Margaret would have been proud of us both.